We're going to have a very full and ecstatic day today. I'm looking forward to. A number of very important places in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, and what that means is very wonderful places of loving exchange between Lord Chaitanya and his loving devotees. And that's Krishna consciousness, loving exchanges between the Supreme Lord and his devotees, or his devotees and his devotees with the Supreme Lord in the center. This morning we're going to be visiting the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacarya. And this morning we'll be discussing the life of Sarvabhauma Bhattacarya and the conversion of Sarvabhauma Bhattacarya from a super smarta Brahmin to a super Vaishnav. And woven into this description of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's life emerges a very clear picture and very nice component of the understanding of the close connection, spiritually and historically, between Jagannath Puri and Navadvip. Of course, one clear connection is Mother Sachi's requesting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to come here. And her reasoning was, now that you have accepted sannyas, what can be done? But at least I'd like to receive news of you. And since there's such a close connection between Jagannath Puri and Navadvip, then if you're in Navadvip, if you're in Jagannath Puri, at least I'll get news of you. And maybe sometimes you'll come to take bath in the Ganges, and then I'll get a chance to see you. And after all, you want to go to Vrindavan, because that's the land of Krishna, but in Jagannath Puri, Krishna is also there. It's the same Krishna. So that's one understanding of this relationship, but it's not just she kind of came up with that idea. There is a long relationship. You'll see parts of it coming out in the life of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was born, in fact we visited the birthplace of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in a place in Navadvip called Vidyanagara. And he was the son of Maheshwara Visharadha. Later Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya describes to Gopinathacharya that his father, Maheshwara Visharada, was a close friend with Nilambar Chakravarti. The relationship, Nilambar Chakravarti was the father of Mother Sachi. And Nilambar Chakravarti had great respect for Prandara Mishra, Jagannath Mishra, the father of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So those are all contemporaries. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya felt he had, as soon as he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he had instant appreciation and kind of like an emotional connect just from the history of his being involved with the same family, although he was now here in Puri, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had just come to Puri. There were two brothers, Vidya Vachaspati and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya were brothers. Vidya Vachaspati was the younger brother, but of the two, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was, not only of the two, of all the scholars in all of Navadvip, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was the best. And to get some appreciation of what that means, it's like if you were to think of places of learning, like, universities in the whole world. The most renowned universities in the whole world have names like Oxford, Harvard, that kind of a name. People may not know that something or other, but everyone has heard that name. And Navadvip had that reputation. Our acharyas described like that, the Oxford of higher education in Brahminical knowledge, scriptural knowledge. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was top, the best. In all of Navadvip, it had the best scholarship in all of India, which meant, practically speaking, in all of the world, with one exception. And that was in the field of Nyaya. There's there's 6 essential doctrines. One of them is this one, that through logic one can have access to the absolute truth. And so that system of logic was very desired, coveted in the world. And it was very strongly taught, it was known, in Mithila. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya desired to learn. And what is the Vedic system for learning? You don't just go to the library or check something out on the internet and read a little bit and think now you're an authority on such a subject matter like goes on today. He went to Mithila to study under the professor of that, the knowledgeable scholar in that field. Nice name, Sri Pakadar Mishra was that scholar. And he studied under this teacher, his guru, or the guru of this Nyaya teaching, but they jealously guarded their manuscripts because they didn't want other people to be able to compete with them. They want, corner on the market of this knowledge. Even Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was such an excellent student, he still wouldn't make an exception. So what did Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya do? He memorized every sloka in the various manuscripts, so that when he went back to Navadvip, from memory he wrote them down. This was the scholarship of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And then he was like, the king of scholars. And how to paint the picture of what that meant in those days. In today's time, who draws the most attention? Scholars may get some attention, but who gets the most attention in today's world? Politicians, sports, personalities, some No, in America it's different sports, in India it's different sports, but... And Hollywood stars, film stars, some musician that gets on stage and wiggles their body and screams into the microphone. There millions of people. I was on the streets of New York once, just distributing books. We had a nice little book table and diorama, and people were coming around, and all of a sudden, everybody disappeared, everything froze, and this big, long, white, stretched limo came zooming up, and all of a sudden, there were like thousands of people, and I didn't know what happened, and then all of a sudden, they were screaming and screaming and screaming. And then, there was this expectant period of time, and no one was interested in the books because they weren't fixed on whatever that thing was going on right at the 42nd Street Library in Manhattan, right across the street. And then about 15 minutes later, some figure went dashing into the limo and moved back. As the limo was driving by, a white glove was sticking up in the air. Michael Jackson. And people screaming and screaming. Such a degraded personality. But attractive to the personalities of our modern times that are so much engrossed in ignorance and passion. For those of you that are from India and don't get the opportunity to see the beautiful golden land of America, these are some of the things that happen in America. They have every year the India Independence Day Parade in Manhattan. It goes down Madison Avenue. And they can't get enough people to come to the India Independence Day Parade. And so they decided they knew how to get a lot of people to come. They got Bollywood stars to come and just be in the parade, just like wave from one of the floats, and millions of people come. And then when they get off the float and go to the stage, and then when they're off the stage, the whole show's over. India Independence Day function is over. It has nothing to do with. It just has to do with the modes of nature and idols of the material energy. So, quite different during this time. The feature of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Navadvip being that place and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya being the greatest scholar, he was the hero amongst persons that had some appreciation for Vedic culture. Now, he was not yet a Vaishnava. He was a Nyaya philosopher. But he taught his students so expertly that King Prataparudra invited Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to leave Navadvip and come here to Jagannath Puri and become his leading priest and scholar in his kingdom. So there's this connection, although great distance away. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya accepted this post. Now, in Transcendental Leela, this all has some significance because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was not physically present, although his influence remained behind in Navadvip. So when Mahaprabhu began his Leela as a budding Bhakta, a Vaishnav, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was already gone. But during the childhood scholarly pastimes of Nimai, he, along with the other students of Gangadas Pandit, would regularly go to the school of Vidya Vachaspati, and they'd have debates, because Vidya Vachaspati had learned Nyaya from his brother, and then he was teaching Nyaya to these young students to give the credibility to Navadvip, and he's like the guy following behind Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So little Nimai, he didn't have access to this Nyaya philosophy, he would come and challenge the students, the Vidya Vachaspati, to debate in logic and smash them. Again and again and again. It was like a regular affair. Play. Indicating in Leela, what is the use of Nyaya? Through logic and hypothesis, and then making arguments to defend your hypothesis in order to hold up the truth. Mahaprabhu showed this doesn't establish truth, because one system of logic can be torn down by another system of logic and put another system of logic that looks superior, tear that one down, put another one up, and it looks good, and then you tear that one down and put another one up, and it's endless. It's inconclusive. It cannot reach the absolute truth. But he's the personality of Godhead. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in Krishna Leela is Brahaspati. So have Brahaspati and the personality of Godhead have a dialogue, and who is going to prevail? No difficulty. So in this Leela, Brahaspati becomes a Vaishnav, or he who is the foremost person of all on this planet in systems of logic, becomes freed from pride and hard-heartedness. As his brother-in-law Gopinath Acharya said, your heart has become hard like a dried oil cake. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat and in Chaitanya Charitamrita, your heart has become as hard as stone or hard metal. Nothing can enter, transcendental knowledge cannot enter into such a heart. But through the association, the Leela is one of the outstanding glories of the name Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. It represents the conversion or the transcending of that limitation of knowledge through logic and reason and scriptural acumen to come to the stage of pure devotional service. That's what when we visit his place, that memory and that feeling should come. Very nice Leela is described. I wish I had, there's a wonderful picture of a Leela that Lord Chaitanya performed with one of the students of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. His name was Jagannath Shiromani. Jagannath Shiromani was a student of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a student of Gangadas Pandit. So, because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was teaching the system of Nyaya, his numero uno, his number one student, was Jagannath. So for years, Jagannath, as a young man, he was working on a commentary about Nyaya. Natural for a student to give exposition on what he heard from his teacher. But he wanted to be the best. Those of you that have this dealing with academia, the best. Competitive spirit in academia. Not just get a degree, the best. He spent years And what was the motivation? Pride, adoration, distinction. He spent years, and he knew that this would make him famous. It would bring him respect. People would look up to him. Oh, Raghunath, you've written such a wonderful commentary on this exclusive knowledge of Nyaya. So one day, filled with pride, he wanted to disclose to Nimai that he had written a book. They were riding in a boat in the Ganga together. This was his chance. He was anticipating just how he would very humbly present to Nimai the fruit of his years of his work. As he was preparing to speak, Nimai showed Raghunath a book that he had just written, which is a commentary on Nyaya. The picture shows Raghunath with his head on his hands. Years of work is spoiled. Because anything Nimai has done would be hundreds of times better than anything I've done. He couldn't even speak. Seeing how devastated Raghunath was, the picture shows. I've seen a few of these. They're very nice. Mahaprabhu just tossed his commentary on Nyaya into the Ganga. Now, how many books do we know that Mahaprabhu wrote? Shikshastakam. That's it. And this other book was another book that he wrote, commentary on Nyaya. Tossed it into the Ganga. Why? Because he saw, it was compassion. The reason was compassion. He saw how devastated Raghunath was. And over what? Over something illusory. Phantasmagoria. False ego. Meaningless. Nothing but suffering. But out of compassion, to maintain the sense of self-importance and composure of Raghunath, he threw away his commentary, never again to be seen. No knowledge of what that was. This was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is by example, he's teaching what is the heart of a Vaishnava. So meanwhile, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has come to Puri and will be visiting the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So we all know the Leela that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, under Mother Sachi's request, was coming to Puri to make Puri his residence. When he reached Jagannath Puri, there was the incident of Nityananda's breaking his danda into 3 pieces and throwing it into the Ganga Nadi river. And Chaitanya Bhagavat, he was asked to hold Lord Chaitanya's danda, and he had a conversation with the danda while Lord Chaitanya was visiting some temples of Lord Shiva. He said, "That person who I hold as the most dear to my heart holds you in his hand. That doesn't make any sense to me." Threw it away. So when Lord Chaitanya we'll visit this place, the Ataranala bridge, where he was then just entering into Jagannath Puri. he asked Lord Nityananda, please give me my danda. Oh my Lord, your danda is gone. When you were in a swoon of ecstasy, I tried to catch you and you fell on the danda and it broke in 3 paces and I threw it away. I don't know where it went. It's my mistake. You can punish me however you like. Lord Chaitanya spoke in an angry way to Lord Nityananda. I'm very pleased that all of you have helped me make this travel all the way from Navadvip to Jagannath Puri without any difficulty by your mercy and kindness. But my only possession in this world is my danda and my kamandalu, and you've lost the danda. So I don't want to travel with you anymore. You can go ahead and I'll come later. Or I'll go ahead and you come later. And they said, oh, you please go. We'll stay behind, we'll come later. So he could enter into the temple alone and move swiftly, run to the altar to embrace Lord Jagannath, faint in ecstasy, the guards with their sticks ready to beat him, Sarvabhauma Bhattacarya coming in just at that moment, and because of his authority, stop! Bring him to my home. And because he was such a scholar, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, in his home, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in a state of mahabhav, ecstasy, he was making different tests to see what was really the situation. Because there was no sign of breathing. Was he dead? So he, being very intelligent, he took some small fibers of cotton and held them before the nostrils of Mahaprabhu. If he was alive, but they were just gently moving. So he could understand he was alive, but in a state of trance. His life hairs were suspended. And being the learned fellow that he was, he could understand this is not possible for an ordinary human being. He's not just a sannyasi. He's not just a sadhu. He's an extraordinary being. So just at that time, Lord Nityananda, Mukunda Datta, Jagatananda Pandit, and the others, Damodar Pandit, they came into the Jagannath temple inquiring if they had seen a young sannyasi. Yes, he's been taken to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. They identified, yes, this is Mahaprabhu. Gopinathacharya went with them. Gopinathacharya had been previously also in Navadvip. Gopinathacharya was the person who Ishwara Puri stayed with when Ishwara Puri was in Navadvip for several months. Gopinathacharya was, again, this is the connection between the two places. They're distant, but in transcendental mood and also just by historical interaction, so much connected. So Gopinathacharya knew, because he had seen Nimai Pandit, he knew who it was. And he was so happy to see him, but he was also at the same time very distressed to see him in this condition. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya recommended that they go take darshan of Lord Jagannath, and he would stay by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's side and try to revive him. So they took darshan, came back and were very loudly having kirtan, chanting the name very, very loudly. And Chaitanya Charitamrita describes it. Noon, Mahaprabhu opened his eyes and said, Hari, Hari.
Hari, Hari.
Everyone was very happy. He's come again to external consciousness. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was inquiring as to where he comes from and what is his family. Gopinathacharya knew, and he described. His grandfather was Nilambar Chakravarti, and his father was Purandara Mishra. Oh, I know Nilambar Chakravarti. My father and he were classmates. And my father had great respect for this sannyasi's father. How nice. He was very happy to know, coming from the same place that I was from. You know how that goes. From the same place I came. Hey, all right. So he requested them all to take bath. He would then prepare nice prasad, or bring nice prasad from Lord Jagannath, and feed them Jagannath prasad. After they all took prasad, he made an arrangement for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's residence at his maternal aunt's home. Very nice place for Mahaprabhu to stay, vacant and quiet and clean and close by. Then he began inquiring into the sannyas status from Gopinathacharya, and he found out he's from the Bharati Sampradaya, the disciple of the most fortunate Keshava Bharati. So although he was a Grahastha, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was very knowledgeable in so many things, and one of those so many things was how to perform rituals where he could give him an upgrade in his sannyas status to a Saraswat Brahmin. I can do the rituals. What do you think, Gopinathacharya? Gopinathacharya was very unhappy to hear this kind of talk, saying he's not dependent upon these mundane considerations of caste and orders of life and such things. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, whoa, Supreme Personality of Godhead? Gopinathacharya, please consider what you're saying. You're a learned scholar, and so am I. On what basis are you saying that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead? The students of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya were there, and they said, we determine things on the basis of hypothesis and logical support of hypothesis. That's how we can understand what is the absolute truth. Gopinathacharya said, you can never understand the absolute truth in that way. You may have learned this from my brother-in-law, but this whole system of understanding truth can never be discerned conclusively in that way. So now I'd like to read a little bit, just directly. It's very technical and detailed, but very important discussion between Gopinathacharya and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya about the divinity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gopinathacharya is being asked, as we are sometimes asked, to establish in a conclusive manner why we accept Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From persons that they've never heard that before. They've heard lots of other things before, they never heard that one before, and they want to know on what basis. So I'm going to read. I don't have the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but I have another version, Veda-based version. I hope I have my glasses. Essentially, what Gopinath Acharya is saying in this discussion is that the absolute truth can be known by the Lord's descending mercy and not otherwise. Somehow the page. The Bhattacharya inquired, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in his full-fledged youthful life. How can he keep the principles of sannyas? I shall continually recite Vedanta philosophy before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so that he may remain fixed in his renunciation and thus enter upon the path of monism. Gopinath Acharya and Mukunda Datta both became very unhappy when they heard this. Gopinath Acharya therefore addressed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya as follows. My dear Bhattacharya, you do not know the greatness of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All the symptoms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are found in him to the highest degree. Gopinath Acharya continued, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is celebrated as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are ignorant in this connection find the conclusion of knowledgeable men to be very difficult to understand. The disciples said, logic, hypothesis. Gopinath Acharya, one cannot attain real knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by such logical hypothesis and argument. Gopinath Acharya continued, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead only by His mercy, not by guesswork. The Acharya continued, if one receives but a tiny bit of the Lord's favor by dint of devotional service, he can understand the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he quotes from the 10th canto, Lord Brahma's prayers, chapter 14. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate in order to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. Gopinath Acharya then addressed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, you are a great scholar and a teacher of many disciples. He had thousands of disciples or students. Indeed, there's no other scholar like you on earth. Nonetheless, because you are bereft of even a pinch of the Lord's mercy, you cannot understand Him. Even He is present in your home. It's not your fault. It's the verdict of the Scriptures. You cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply by scholarship. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, "My dear Gopinath, please speak with great care. What is the proof that you have received the mercy of the Lord?" Gopinath replied, "Knowledge of the summum bonum, the absolute truth, is evidence of the mercy of the Supreme Lord. You have seen the symptoms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during his absorption in an ecstatic mood. His test let him know this is not possible for a jiva soul, an ordinary being. It's not possible." He knew empirically. Despite directly perceiving the symptoms of the Supreme Lord in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you cannot understand him. In common language, this is illusion. A person influenced by the external energy is called Bahirmukha Jana, a mundane person, because despite his perception, he cannot understand the real substance. Hearing Gopinath Acharya say this, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya smiled. They're brother-in-laws, you know, and began to speak as follows. "We're just having a discussion among friends, considering different points from scriptures. Don't become angry. I'm simply speaking on the strength of Shastra. Please don't take any offense. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is certainly a great, uncommon devotee. We cannot accept him as an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, because according to Shastra, there is no incarnation in this age. Another name of Lord Vishnu is Triyuga, because there is no incarnation of Lord Vishnu in Kali Yuga. Indeed, this is the verdict of the revealed scriptures." Upon hearing this, Gopinath Acharya became very unhappy. He said to the Bhattacharya, "You consider yourself the knower of all Vedic scriptures. Srimad Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata are the two most important Vedic scriptures, but you have paid no attention to their statements. In Srimad Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata, it is stated that the Lord appears directly. But you say that in this age, there is no manifestation or incarnation of the Lord. In this age of Kali, there is no Leela avatar of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore he is known as Triyuga. That is one of his holy names. There is certainly an incarnation in every age, and such an incarnation is called the Yuga avatar. But your heart has become so hardened by logic and argument that you cannot consider all these facts." He quotes from Garga Muni, the name-giving ceremony for Krishna from the Bhagavatam, that Krishna in previous age was in a yellowish complexion. And similarly from the 11th canto, in this age of Kali, as well as in Dwapara Yuga, the people offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by various mantras and observe the regular principles of the supplementary Vedic literatures. Now please hear of this from me. Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishna Sangopam Gashta Parshadam is quoted. The Vishnu Sahasranam verse was quoted. Sarva Varno Hemango, etc. That Lord Chaitanya appears in the age of Kali Yuga. The Supreme Lord, one of the names of Vishnu, is the Lord who appears in a golden complexion and engages in Sankirtan. Gopinath Acharya then said, "There is no need to quote so much evidence from the Shastras, for you are a very dry speculator. There's no need to sow seeds in barren land." Then he gives this prediction. "When the Lord will be pleased with you, you will understand these conclusions, and you will quote from the Shastras. The false arguments and philosophical word jugglery of your disciples are not faults of theirs. They have simply received the benediction of Mayavad philosophy. He quotes from the 6th canto, chapter 4, Bhagavatam, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is full of unlimited qualities, and whose different potencies bring about agreement and disagreement between disputants. Thus the illusory energy again and again covers the self-realization for both disputants. Again, another scriptural quote. In almost all cases, whenever learned brahmanas speak, whatever they speak becomes accepted. Nothing is impossible for one who takes shelter of my illusory energy and speaks under her influence. After hearing all of this from Gopinath Acharya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, first go to the place where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is staying and invite him here with his associates. Ask him on my account. Take Jagannath Prasad and first give it to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. After that, come back here and teach me well. Mukunda Datta was with Gopinath Acharya the whole time, and he was very pained to hear Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya speak in this way. But he was very pleased by the strong statements made by Gopinath Acharya. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after taking prasad, was again brought before Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he made the suggestion, two suggestions. What happened, this entering into the Jagannath temple, could have been very dangerous. He was going to be beaten. And so he suggested that you not enter the Jagannath temple except with myself or one of my associates. Mahaprabhu said, I will not enter into the temple directly, but always see Lord Jagannath from the Gruda Stamba. Then he also said, to protect your sannyas vows, I'd like to volunteer the service of teaching you Vedanta Sutra, so you'll be well protected. And taking the position of like a son to the father, he said, you're very kind upon me. Whatever it is that you wish, I accept, because it's for my own good. I'm such a young personality, I don't know what is right and wrong, and you're very kind upon me. So the very next day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sat on a small little mat on the floor and placed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on a raised seat, respecting him as a sannyasi. But he took the role of a teacher and began instructing him, as we know, for 7 days, morning till night, morning till night, morning till night, instructing him on Vedanta Sutra with Mahaprabhu saying nothing. On the 8th morning, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, I can't understand why it is that you're remaining silent, nor do I understand if you are understanding what I'm saying. Because at least if you didn't understand, you could say, I don't understand, or you don't agree, or whatever it is, but you're saying nothing. So please tell me if you're able to understand Vedanta Sutra. Finally, Mahaprabhu spoke and said, yes, I can understand Vedanta Sutra. But your explanations are like clouds that cover the sun. The real meaning of the Vedanta Sutra is being covered the more you speak. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, very well, if you understand Vedanta Sutra, then you please explain what is your understanding. Now this portion, what follows, I'm not going to go into it because it's very extensive, but what follows, it makes up one of the 5 main portions of teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Or in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's book, Chaitanya Shikshamrita, or Prabhupada's teachings of Lord Chaitanya. There are 5 main dialogues. Lord Chaitanya's talks with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Lord Chaitanya's discussion with Prakashananda Saraswati, his discussions with Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and Ramananda Roy. Those 5 make up the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which Prabhupada published in a separate book. Even before he translated Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it's a very important discussion. And to keep it really simple, there are 2 main points that are discussed by Lord Chaitanya in order to understand Vedanta Sutra. He said Vedanta Sutra has its natural commentary already in Srimad Bhagavatam by Vyasa himself, who compiled Vedanta Sutra. So if one becomes knowledgeable in Srimad Bhagavatam, one can have a clear understanding of Vedanta Sutra through Srimad Bhagavatam. And the 2 points were the Lord has unlimited potencies and that He's a person. Very simple. And the point of Gopinathacharya was that one who is a logician only, and that was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's case. Very, very knowledgeable, most knowledgeable. But how to put things together, this with that, because that's what those that don't have this descending mercy, that's all they have. You understand this, you understand that, you put this together with that, and you come to a conclusion. And another one, no, this is that, and that's this, and put them together this way. The absolute truth cannot be understood that way. But one drop of mercy. So Mahaprabhu is now giving this drop of mercy. More than a drop, a flood of mercy. And please appreciate, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's got a big vessel, a knowledge capacity vessel, but it's been dry, just based on speculation. Now it's getting this descending mercy. And when that knowledge vessel is filled with the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's kindness, disclosing, because this is how transcendental knowledge is understood, by disclosure. He's disclosing. He is the personality of Godhead, disclosing the conclusions of Vedanta Sutra to the most knowledgeable person in Vedanta Sutra. His hard heart is becoming softened and moistened. After hearing Mahaprabhu's explanation of Vedanta Sutra, he was stunned. Being a scholar, he then said, could you explain this one verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, the Atmaram shloka? Mahaprabhu said, you're such a scholar, I'm sure that you can explain it. Oh yes, I can explain it. I can explain it in 16 different ways. And he explained it in 16 different ways. And then he said to Mahaprabhu, would you like to explain this verse? By your order, you are my superior, right? And he gave 64 different meanings without touching on any one of the 16 meanings. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya heard these teachings from Mahaprabhu, something happened. The light went on. He could understand, you're not just a better scholar than me. You're the personality of Godhead. Just like Gopinathacharya said. And how did he show his appreciation? Just like Keshava Kashmiri, like the blowing wind, he then spontaneously composed 100 verses in Sanskrit, glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the personality of Godhead. He was transformed. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became so pleased with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he showed his mercy. Now, according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, he showed his Vishnu form, and then he showed his two-armed form of Krishna. According to Chaitanya Bhagavat, he showed his Sadbhuj form. He disclosed his divinity. After Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had surrendered unto him and served him in a way that a scholar serves another person, with choice words of praise and prayer, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya fell to the ground, offering full obeisances before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The very next day, to test Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went early in the morning to attend the first arti ceremony, and he received Mahaprasad from the pujaris and brought Mahaprasad to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was still snoozing. He hadn't gotten up yet. He was still lying in bed after Mangalarti. And Mahaprabhu went right into his house and right by his bed and offered the Mahaprasad to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sat up in bed and started taking the Mahaprasad. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, excuse me, but this isn't according to the rules of a Brahmana. Doesn't take his meals until after his bath and doing his puja, and then you take your meal. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then quoted from scripture to Lord Chaitanya, just as Gopinath Acharya said he was, describing the sacred nature of the prasad, of the personality of Godhead, that one should take it at once, regardless of one's condition or its condition, as an injunction. And therefore there's no fault on my part. Mahaprabhu then said, finally, at last, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has become a devotee of the Lord, shown by his absolute faith in the prasad of the personality of Godhead. The very next day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, instead of going to the Jagannath temple, went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he came to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with a question. Submission. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So he came with his prashna. He said, I'm a smarta Brahmin. I know so many rules, so many regulations, so many procedures. Can you tell me, out of all the possible range of things, what's the most important thing for any soul that's desiring spiritual elevation? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then elaborately explained to him the Harir Nama verse. Harir Nama, Harir Nama, Harir Nama eva kevalam kalo nastyeva 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 gatyeva. And the brilliant explanations of that verse, spoken by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, left Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya simply stunned. And seeing his condition like that, Gopinath Acharya commented, I told you, when you receive some mercy from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this will become your condition. Such is the potency of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Even a dry logician like you can become soft in heart like this. Then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya spoke to Gopinath Acharya and said, I can understand why this mercy has come into my life, it's because of you. Because you're so dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has shown a drop of his kindness to me. That is my good fortune. Mahaprabhu was very pleased and said, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, you didn't go to see Lord Jagannath. Go see Lord Jagannath. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya went to see Lord Jagannath. He went with Mukunda Datta and Jagatananda Pandit. And he made some arrangement for Jagannath Prasad to be taken from the temple by Mukunda Datta and Jagatananda back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he also wrote 2 verses, and spontaneously, in his mood of ecstasy, to glorify Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they took the prasad and these 2 verses back. They were intercepted by Swarup Damodar, understanding that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reads them, he'll destroy the verses. And so he wrote them down in a second copy. And when the prasad of Lord Jagannath was given to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, along with these 2 verses, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ripped them into shreds. But fortunately, the devotees still had a copy. And these 2 verses have become immortalized as verses since the time of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's time, as verses that exemplify the true position of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I'd like to read those 2 verses. The first one begins, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. Where is that verse? 254. Here we go. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shikshartam Eka Purushak Paranam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari Kripam Budhir Yastam Maham Prapadye. As soon as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu read these 2 verses, he immediately tore up the palm leaf. However, all the devotees read these verses on the outer wall, just outside Gambhira, and they all kept them within their hearts. The verses read as follows. Let me take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who has descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us knowledge, his devotional service, and detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness. He has descended because he is an ocean of transcendental mercy. Let me surrender unto his lotus feet. Then, let my consciousness, which is like a honeybee, take shelter in the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has just now appeared as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach the ancient system of devotional service to himself. This system has almost been lost due to the influence of time. Due to the influence of time, we have to end this morning's class. And actually, I apologize for taking so long. The pastimes with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, we can discuss a little bit more when we get to his place. There's so many. He became such an intimate associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here in Jagannath Puri. So this morning, at what time we're going to go? 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki
Jagannath Puri Tham Ki Jai Go Premanande. We've come to a place very near the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacarya. Stopping here is just spontaneous, but it's so nice. This is Sweta Ganga, and up on the hill in the direction that we're going to be walking is the house of Ganga Mata Goswamini. And this place, Sweta Ganga, has some specific and very special significance in her life. So I'd like to narrate a little bit about her life in this place. You'll hear from her life that she was very intimately connected with the worship of the deities at Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. And the situation also discloses something that's very practical and very important for all of us to understand about our role to preserve the teachings and the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, about 2 or 3 generations after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left this world, in a kingdom in the northern part of Orissa, or the southern part of West Bengal, was one king his name was Naresh Narayan. Naresh Narayan had one daughter only, and her name was Sachi. From her early childhood, Sachi showed 2 very strong indications of her future. She was very scholarly, and she was very devoted. So in her childhood, very quickly she mastered all of the academics that a royal family could provide for another younger member of the royal family. Extremely accomplished in her scholarship. But even more outstanding was her quality of devotion. Very, 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 very strong was her devotion. So much so that when it became time for her of marriageable age, for the king and the queen to make arrangement for their only offspring, she told her mother and father, "I do not want to marry anyone who is born in this mortal world." So how do you marry someone that's not born in this mortal world? That means she doesn't want to be married, but she didn't say, "I don't want to be married." She said, "I don't want to be married to anyone who was born in this mortal world." Indirectly, she's saying her real husband was Krishna. So her parents thought, she's a young girl, she'll get over that. But she didn't get over that. It became stronger and stronger and stronger. So much to the frustration and disturbed state of mind of her mother and father, the king and queen, finally they left this world without having their daughter married. She inherited the kingdom, and she ruled as queen, although she had no interest in the affairs of state. So one time, in the name of making a tour of her kingdom to make sure everything was going on very nicely. She made arrangements for the kingdom to be looked after in her absence and went on tour looking for a spiritual master. And she came right here to Jagannath Puri, spent some time, and while here in Jagannath Puri, she heard about the very, very elevated Vaishnavas that live in Vrindavan, the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. She went to Vrindavan. And when she reached Vrindavan, she heard of one very great Vaishnava. Haridas Pandit was the most eminent Vaishnava during that time. Haridas Pandit was a disciple of Ananta Acharya. Ananta Acharya was a disciple of Gadadhar Pandit, just to give you some idea of chronology and personalities. The same Haridas Pandit is the personality who instructed or requested Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami to write Chaitanya Charitamrita. And on the order of Haridas Pandit, Krishnadas Kaviraj wrote. Same personality. So in her royal attire, with her royal ornaments, and her personality that fit the situation, she came before Haridas Pandit, offered her humble obeisances, and requested Haridas Pandit to accept her as a disciple. Haridas Pandit's reply was, "This is not possible. You're from a royal family. You're accustomed to royal comforts and prestige and pomp, and here in Vrindavan, where it is my residence, none of these things are of any importance. It will not be possible for you to live here in Vrindavan as my disciple and be happy." She was from royal stock, and so she knew exactly what Haridas Pandit was doing. He was probing to see what is her real desire, how sincere and deeply serious she was about spiritual life. She understood that to be his message. She didn't become discouraged. Rather, she remained in Vrindavan, and slowly she removed her golden ornaments and bracelets and rings and fine cloth, and accepted the simple cloth that we find in the village people in Vrindavan. Although she's the queen of a kingdom, she maintained herself by performing madhukari, just like a sadhu. Extending her cloth at the home of whoever it was would offer her something, and then whatever she received at the end of the day, that was her sustenance. And throughout the day, she would visit various places where there are temples and sadhus who are speaking the message of pure devotional service. So Haridas Pandit could understand. She's very serious. So then one more exchange is described in their dealings with one another. If you can actually be happy in this situation, living as you're living, then I can consider accepting you as a disciple. So for almost 2 years, she lived in this way, and her very, very beautiful, queenly form became very thin and frail. But she was radiating with a transcendental happiness that was far more attractive than her former material beauty. And all the residents of Vrindavan were appreciating the genuine devotion of Sachi. And so Haridas Pandit accepted her as an initiated disciple. He initiated her into the chanting of Krishna's holy name and the 18-syllable mantra. Doesn't mention in the biography what name she was given. It just continues speaking of her as Sachi. And after some time, he assigned for her to reside as Jagannath Das Goswami had made as his residence by Radhakund. And Haridas Pandit had another female disciple, very, very elevated Vaishnavi, whose name was Lakshmi Priya. She was having the practice of chanting as Haridas Thakur 3 lakhs of names a day. Hare Krishna. He requested Lakshmi Priya to go give her association to Sachi, to stay with her by Radhakund. So over a period of time, through the association of these two very, very elevated Vaishnavis, and Sachi's regularly sitting at the feet of Haridas Pandit, hearing with great attention, with her sharp capacity to understand the message of pure devotion. She became very, very accomplished in Srimad Bhagavatam. Then Haridas Pandit, as you recall, his spiritual master was Ananta Acharya, whose spiritual master was Gadadhar Pandit. Here, in Puri, he received word that the descendants of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya were no longer properly maintaining the worship of his deity. We're going to go and see his deity. Very, very beautiful deity. His Shalagram Shila, Damodar Shila, and his Radha Krishna deity. So he instructed her 2 things. You are from that area, you speak the local language, you understand the message of pure devotion, you're living your life as an exemplary member of that message. Go to Puri, take care of the deities of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and preach the message of pure devotion as found in Srimad Bhagavatam amongst those who are your peers, your native members. Good preaching strategy. Note. Because it worked. So on the order of Haridas Pandit, Sachi came here and made her residence where we're going shortly, to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. The biography of her life describes just a short 2 or 3 generations had passed, and the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was sorely neglected. It was dilapidated. And the teachings of pure devotion had also, just 2 or 3 generations, had gone down and down until what was here so abundantly just a few generations before was hardly present. Please consider what our responsibility is as members of ISKCON, to take this message of pure devotion and continue it to the next generation, and the next generation, and the next generation. Something glorious over a period of time may also deteriorate, as did the teachings of Lord Chaitanya here in Puri, the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and even the worship of his deity. Now, the Smarta influence from the time of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was again upsurging, and any Smarta Brahmin will let you know that a woman doesn't worship Shalagram Shila. Sachi worshipped Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's Shalagram Shila and his Radha Krishna deity. And there were some smartas that objected. And Sachi, based upon the training and teaching that she had received from Haridas Pandit and the associates of Mahaprabhu in Vrindavan, she understood exactly why it was that Haridas, on scriptural authority, was permitting her to do this service. And she gave very clear and strong scriptural explanations of why. And everyone had to accept, because this was, in fact, the teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So as some time passed, along with the worship of the deity, every day she would give a morning class in Srimad Bhagavatam. And news spread very quickly that her presentation of Srimad Bhagavatam is just astounding. We've not heard anything like this before, although it's just the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, disclosing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. And so the assembly became larger and larger and larger. One day the king of Puri heard about Sachi's wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam classes, and he desired to come here and hear her speak. When he heard her speak, he was astounded. And a desire stirred in his heart. He wanted to do some service for her. That night, in a dream, the king had a dream where Lord Jagannath appeared. And Jagannath gave him two instructions. He said, you should build a house for Ganga Mata, for Mother Sachi, very near to the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. That's right by very near the Sweta Ganga. This is the Sweta Ganga. She would like that very much. And also, you should seek shelter of her lotus feet. No, this comes later. So he did this service for her. And as she was... Hare Krishna. No? Hare Krishna. Is this better or worse? Can you hear better?
Yes.
Much better. Okay. Should I go back to the beginning? Can you hear up there on the stairs? Hare Krishna. So one time, it was a certain festival once a year is held where a Mahasnan, Mahavaruni Snan takes place at the Ganga, where Varuni takes bath in the Ganga. And she very much wanted to go. But she was instructed by Haridas Pandit to stay and serve the deity. And so she couldn't go. And recalling that instruction, that was enough. She dropped the idea. She didn't like whine and complain and, oh, I'm stuck here, I can't do what I want to do. She just wanted to follow the instruction of Haridas Pandit. So she gave up the idea. In the evening, she had a dream. In that dream, Jagannath came to her and said, Sachi, don't think like that. The day when Varuni will take bath, that day you must go to bathe in Sweta Ganga, because it's none different. You just come here to Sweta Ganga, take your bath this evening. So that evening, late at night, when no one else was around, Sachi came here and took her bath in Sweta Ganga. As she was bathing in Sweta Ganga, the water of Sweta Ganga started to rise and rise and rise, and waves started coming from Sweta Ganga, carrying Sachi right to the Jagannath temple and inside the Jagannath temple. And the devotees here in Puri, who also were unable to go, they understood, Ganga is coming. They all took their bath in the Ganga on Mahavaruni Snan. And there was a whole clamor late at night, and the guards in the temple woke up. Well, they were supposed to be awake, but they woke up. What's this noise? Even the king himself heard so much clamor. He came out of his palace. What's going on? What's going on? So just to see to the safety of Lord Jagannath, they unlocked the doors, because they only have the key, and they went inside, and there was Sachi standing right in the middle of the temple room floor. And they thought, she must be a thief. She's come to steal the ornaments of Jagannath in the dead of night, posing herself as a sadhu. And she was arrested and put in the king's jail. That night the king had a dream. Lord Jagannath appeared. Jagannath said, immediately release Sachi from your dungeons. It was because I wanted to personally arrange for her washing. He wanted to arrange for washing her holy feet with the Ganga. He personally wanted to do that. Therefore, I've brought her here. If you at all want to live peacefully for the rest of your life, release her at once. Moreover, you should take shelter of her and receive initiation from her. The king was a great devotee of Lord Jagannath, and he understood what a great mistake he had made. He came to her house where we're going. The king came to her house, profusely apologized, told her of the dream, that Jagannath gave his instruction for her to initiate him. And she smiled, thinking, what playful sport Jagannath makes. Haribol, Lord Jagannath. And so on an auspicious day, the king, along with many of the attendants of the king, took initiation, and from that day forward, Sachi became known as Ganga Mata Goswamini. One of the great Vaishnavis in Lord Chaitanya's disciplic line, and by her incredible qualification, she became an initiating spiritual master in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As did Hemalata, the daughter of Srinivasacharya, and Janava Mata, the wife of Lord Nityananda. So right here in Jagannath Puri, Ganga Mata Goswamini resided, very near Sweta Ganga. One other big-time Smarta Brahmin scholars at the time was on tour and came to Puri, and he came to hear about Sachi Mata, but Ganga Mata Goswamini. So he came to hear from her. He wanted to hear her explanations of Srimad Bhagavatam. Just from one day of sitting with her, hearing her explanations, He was overwhelmed. Just like we heard Sarvabhauma Bhattacarya, such a qualified scholar, hearing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explain Vedanta Sutra, he was convinced that all of this smarta stuff that he had been learning his whole life was practically useless. And the pure knowledge that he had received from Ganga Mata Goswamini was the real thing. He stayed and continued to hear from her. And after some time, he also requested her to give him initiation. Big Smarta Pandit. Very similar to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's becoming a devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, this Sweta Ganga carrying her into the temple, it's like a miracle. But for Jagannath, it's simply his play. And this, out of this whole story, this description of her life, something that, I'll say it again because it's so important, the successive generations following Srila Prabhupada's very, very powerful, dynamic, charismatic leadership to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world in an unprecedented manner. Very easy for all of that to just collapse in a few short generations. So it's really incumbent upon those who are receiving that same knowledge to take that gift very seriously. Perform those same activities that are demonstrative of sense control, not on the same scale necessarily as Ganga Mata Goswamini, but to be very serious about receiving shelter at the lotus feet of the representatives of the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very serious in this manner. And in that state, eagerly try to receive the transcendental message of pure devotion with full faith that there's nothing that can compare in its purity and perfection as the message of pure devotional service. And carry that message of pure devotional service forward into the next generation and on to the next generation. This is our great privilege and great challenge. Anywhere you turn, left and right, in front of you and behind you and above you and below you, in all directions, there's challenges. I'm just, even in the hotel where we're having our program, as you exit the hotel, just to the left, in the Jagannath Puri Dham. There's not a picture of Lord Jagannath. Something's going on. The face of the Holy Land, even in Purushottam Shatra, is changing. Very serious. What will exist a few generations from now? And it very much depends upon the sincere members who are receiving this same message of pure devotional service to take it to heart very seriously. Live it purely. And in a very compassionate way, give this message to others. In the course of the day, we're going to be hearing of several personalities who did just like that in the course of their Krishna conscious lives, and it's incumbent upon each one of us taking inspiration, praying for the mercy of these great souls to carry forward this message also. In a very sacred, caring way. It's a very serious matter. To preserve the message of pure devotional service is not just a teaching, it's a whole way of life. One's life
should be the expression of that pure devotional service message. That's very powerful. So this is Sweta Ganga. We can take a couple of steps down and sprinkle some of Ganga Jal on our heads, and then we'll go to, next we're going to go to Ganga Mata Goswamini's home, yes? Then to Sarvabhauma Bhattacarya's house while there's still Darshan. Huh? Kunjamat. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Put ready. Lecture karna.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
We'll wait for you out here. This is a temple that Shamananda Prabhu, Narottam, Shamananda, and Srinivas, Shamananda of that three, Shamananda established a temple here in Puri. The worship was maintained by his disciple Rasikananda. The name of the deity is Radha Rasika Roy. And we'll hear some katha, at least according to the Pujari, a little bit later. Radha Rasika Roy, deity of Shamananda Prabhu.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.